Jiu ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Jiu ki jai. Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiu ki jai. Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga ki jai. Shri Nrsinga Bhagavan ki jai. Jai Nitilila Pravishno Vishnupad Paramahansa Astutara Sata Shri Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Nitilila Pravishno Vishnupad Paramahansa Astutara Sata Shri Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Nitilila Pravishno Vishnupad Paramahansa Astutara Sata Shri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Srila Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Vaishnava Sarvabhaum Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gauri Vedanta Charya Baladevi Vibhushan Prabhu ki jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Srila Narottam Srinivasyamananda Prabhu Trai ki jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Sadgoswami Prabhu ki jai. Srila Swarup Damodar Roy Ramanandadi Gaura Parsada Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Sigo Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Navadvip Dham ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dvadashavanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dham ki jai. Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Kshetra Dham ki jai. Bhakti Vigna Vinashana Shri Nrsinga Dev ki jai. Bhakta Prabhu Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Tribhuvana Pavana Harinam Sankirtana ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhavitamscha. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Angayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tvishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Brindai Tulsi Debai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Panchatattvaatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pada Paramahansa, Asto Tarasata Sri Srila, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahansa Astotarasata, Sri Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj, and Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad, Paramahansa Astotarasata, Sri Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of all of my Shri Shri Rupa Nuga Guru Varga, and my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So yesterday we talked about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, a little bit about his lila, his pastimes as a sannyasi, and how he was quite aloof from identification with the Varnashram Dharma. But yet, even though he was immersed in internal moods of Radha Bhav, but at certain times, I'll give you one example. At certain times, he was alerted. In fact, this was by Swarup Damodar Goswami. He was alerted because Mahaprabhu was hearing the singing, very, very beautiful singing. I think one of the Devadasis of Lord Jagannath was singing Gita Govinda in some garden. And Mahaprabhu heard that. And he began running towards where the singer was. And Swarup Damodar was running after him. And finally Swarup Damodar caught up and grabbed Mahaprabhu. He says, "It is a woman singing." I mean, because Mahaprabhu was going to come and embrace and, you know. And then he said, "Oh, you've saved my life." You see. So Mahaprabhu was always teaching. Even one time, Ramachandra Puri, who was a god brother of his spiritual master, Ishwara Puripad, but who was somewhat rejected by Madhavendra Puri. And he had some tendency toward impersonalism. But he came to Puri, and because of Maryada, that he was very senior, so Mahaprabhu was very subservient mood toward him, because Mahaprabhu was so young in comparison, and also he's the god brother of his spiritual master. So Ramachandra Puri always had a critical attitude and he would find fault. It was his nature. We later learned who he is in Krishna Lila. Do you know who Ramachandra Puri is in Krishna Lila? Yes, Jatila. Jatila. So that's his service. But anyway, all the devotees were very disturbed because Ramachandra Puri came and he was pointing out, just see, there's so many ants here. That means you've been eating sweets. He's very strict, very strict in his sannyas vows and his eating and everything. So he said that to Mahaprabhu. And not only that, so much luxurious foodstuffs you are eating in so much quantity. So how did Mahaprabhu respond to that? Huh?
He ate only half.
Yeah.
He began to eat half of his usual portion.
Right, and he kept on going. And he's getting thin, Mahaprabhu. And all the devotees were becoming very upset. But Mahaprabhu, he continued. While Ramachandra Puri was present. So then finally, Ramachandra Puri made his decision. He was going to continue on his pilgrimage and leave Puri. And so when he left, all the devotees were rejoicing. He felt such relief. You see? But so Mahaprabhu was teaching by his example. But yet, who could be more far above and beyond Varnashram Dharma than Gauranga Mahaprabhu himself? He's teaching by example. So, so now, yesterday we were also reading this Varnashram is to be followed until the body is given up. Should be followed until the body is given up. And now we're coming to the next section. Varna is not determined by birth. What Varna that you are in is not determined by birth, which is what most of the culture in India has become degraded to that. You're born in a Brahmin family, which is not at all pure in the Kali Yuga. And so there you're a Brahmin, because you're born in the Brahmin family, right? So, so this is a very important point that's being made, that Varna is not determined by birth, but rather by nature, by a person's nature, svabhav. So now Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to elaborate on this point. Humans are generally divided into several categories: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and Sankara, which means mixed caste, and Antyaja, which means outcast. These are the different categories of humans. Now, although Varnashram Dharma is not discernible in some countries, but it exists there in the form of a bud. Bud, like in a flower bud. It exists in the form of a bud. So is that not the situation here? America, Europe, go to any countries. They don't have the actual outward manifestation of these scientific divisions of human society, but it's there in the form of a bud. Now, what does that mean? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says a person's nature will be reflected. His nature will be reflected in his tendencies, which is called vritti. So his nature will be reflected there. And also how he earns his living. His nature will be reflected there. That's the bud form. Now, to adopt others' tendencies and means of earning a livelihood is harmful. It's harmful. It may even cause huge obstacles to appear on the path of Hari Bhajan. Yeah. What will cause huge obstacles to appear on the path of Hari Bhajan?
To assume another's means of livelihood, or one that's not to your nature.
And also their tendencies. Now, but a question arises here. How can the varna of a person be ascertained? So what is varna?
Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra.
Right. That is varna, ashrama, dharma. So that's the varna dharma.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. So how can the varna of a person be ascertained?
Their qualities.
He's going to answer that now. How can his dharma, his means of earning a livelihood, and other such considerations be properly established as long as his varna has not been correctly determined? Right? How can his means of livelihood, his dharma, all these different various other considerations, how can it be properly established as long as his varna has not been correctly determined? Nowadays, varna is generally decided according to birth. We said that. And that's what still lives on in a crippled, perverted form of the original varnashram in India. That's called the caste system. What caste? So, nowadays, varna is generally decided according to birth. But such a method is not in compliance with the scriptures to decide what varna a person is in according to their birth. That's not in compliance with the Shastras. And it is also illogical, he says. It is illogical. It is not intelligent. The proper method to determine one's varna according to one's nature, swabhav. That's the proper method, is to determine one's varna according to one's swabhav, one's nature. This method has been established by the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 11th chapter, 35th verse. Yasya yal lakshanam proktam, pungso varna bivyanjakam, yad anyatrapi drishyeta, tatte naiva vinirdishet. It is to be understood that a person belongs to that varna for which his natural characteristics are symptomatic. Lakshana means characteristics. So these are the symptoms. Even if he has taken birth in a different varna. Even if he's taken birth in a different varna, but you will be able to understand that a person belongs to a varna only by his natural characteristics are the true symptom. This is why Krishna states in Gita, Chatur Varnyamaya Shristam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. Guna Karma means that by the qualities and by the action, karma, how a person works, what tendency they have to do, what kind of activity to earn their livelihood. Now, the great Srila Sridhar Swami, the original commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahaprabhu had very great regard for him. He comments on the above mentioned verse, this Bhagavatam verse that we just read. He says, Shamadibir eva brahmanadi vyavaharo mukhya najati matradityaha yasyeti yad yadi anyatra varnantare pidrishyeta tad varnantaram tenaiva lakshana nimittenaiva varnena minirdishet na tu jati nimittene. I like to read the Sanskrit because I know certain words and I kind of get some, okay, he's mentioned this word. What's he about to say? Even though I can't understand it all. But it's good to do that. I've always done that. And hear the sound of it also. So now, he's telling the characteristics of Brahmanas, such as self-control, are the most important factor in determining their varna, not just birth. This is expressed in the above Srimad Bhagavatam verse, beginning with yasya. If this conduct is found in a person of a different varna, he is to be designated a Brahmin on the basis of that characteristic. So, what is he saying? What's the quality of the Brahmana?
Self-control.
Self-control, right? But if it's found in another person who is not born in any caste or family of Brahminical caste, that person still should be designated as a Brahmin on the basis of that characteristic. So actually, this is one of the most important features of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement, is this non-adherence to the external forms of the caste system. Even in India, Mahaprabhu was challenging that. That's why he accepted persons who were even outcast in the form of like Haridas Thakur, Muslim family. So Mahaprabhu, he broke these barriers, in so many ways, and also coming down in his line. And the preaching mission coming to the West and helping all the jivas in the Western world outside of India required this, This is really the first time in history that this has occurred, because in the West they don't even have a caste system. But one thing that I've noticed? There is an unspoken caste system in the West.
Totally.
Huh? Yes. And people are drawn toward certain activities by their characteristics, their nature. Right?
It's just natural.
It's just natural. But you see, that's different because it's only the bud form, it's not fully developed. And that means that they always deviate from their caste and they dip down into other castes and so forth. And that does not help human society to make progress. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and plus
microphone.
Plus in the West, like the teaching class, teachers are not held in high regard. Yet the business people, they're held in the highest regard.
Yeah, that's the perversion of the Kali Yuga. Yeah. It's stated in the 12th canto. Those are some of the symptoms of Kali Yuga. Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Those are some of the symptoms of the Kali Yuga. That a person will be designated as a great personality by dint of how much money they have. You see. But in previous yugas, when the Varnashram system was there, they were considered lower class. Vaishyas and so forth. And they're in the mixed modes of passion and ignorance, the Vaishya community. Right? That's lower class. It's still in the category of Dvija. That means twice born. So those three upper Varnas, the Brahmin, Kshatriya, and Vaishyas, they can receive the Brahminical initiation, but not the Shudras. See? So everybody, according to their modes of nature, are situated in different Varnas and according to their characteristics and qualities. They are properly situated in those Varnas. Then if they work according to those qualities that they inherently have, and Krishna designates in the Bhagavad Gita how they are supposed to work. And the Shudras is to do service to others. It's not like nowadays, people look down on that, you know. But in the Vedic system, each caste is properly situated. And it's not an insult to the lower classes that they're kept in a certain area separately from, like the Brahmin, you'll never find the Brahmins living in the same area of a town or city as the Shudras, because they have different characteristics. So this is only scientific. This is scientific. Now, so that verse that Srila Sridhar Swami just commented on is that if this conduct of a Brahmin is found in a person of a different Varna, then he is to be designated a Brahmana on the basis of that characteristic. This type of eternal Varnashram Dharma, now he's using the word eternal Varnashram Dharma, should always be found. It is generally useful and it is favorable for bhakti. Why is he saying eternal Varnashram Dharma? Because we see it even in the lives and the Leela of the Supreme Lord when he descends. It's always pervading the whole universe. And every creation of the material universe, again, the same system is always kept there. Not only that, but in the transcendental Dham, right? In Sri Braj Dham, the eternal Nitya Dham, they have the caste system divisions there, you see. But completely subordinate to Krishna and his Leelas. Now, those in the four Varnas, and also the Sankara Varna, that means the persons outside of the four Varnas, so they must endeavor to increase their sattvic nature. We've heard that already. It's very necessary to endeavor to increase sattvic nature. When good fortune arises for a person belonging to the classes outside Vedic culture, who's that? Us. Right? So when good fortune arises for a person belonging to the classes outside Vedic culture, he will, as a result of his previous sukriti, he will follow the conduct befitting the Shudra Varna, the artisans and the laborers, and he will develop the mode of goodness. You see? So, that's natural and normal. This is why we can see, Prabhupada, remember how he used to talk about communism is a philosophy for the Shudras, for the working class, right? But the Shudras are less intelligent by their very nature. Their intelligence is not purified, and it's affected completely by the mode of ignorance, because the Shudras are in the mode of ignorance. No, but if you see a person who appears in a Shudra birth, family situation, but he has Brahminical qualities, he's not a Shudra. That's what enabled us to come to Krishna consciousness, because there's no consideration of birth. There's no consideration of caste or anything like that. The only consideration is, what are your qualities? How is your sukriti? Like this. But Prabhupada did intend that there would be more of an expansive development of Varnashram for the sake of the Krishna consciousness movement, and that within that context, the devotees who are coming, who are indeed Vaishnavas, but yet they come with previous tendencies and previous natures due to their previous lives, karma and samskaras. So Prabhupada was even saying that some can be designated that they're more Kshatriya. Actually, that took place anyway, right? In the Krishna consciousness movement. It took place anyway, and there's a lot to say about that, right? But, those who were more in the working kind of Shudra, work with their hands, artisans, this, that, they naturally gravitated towards that in the service of Krishna, right? Musicians, so forth. you know, and the business type people, they definitely popped up here and there, you know, and the brahmanas also. Those who are more scholarly, more mode of goodness, more self-controlled, you know, like that. So in the Krishna consciousness movement, you can see that those divisions are there, but they're not discriminated against for having those particular qualities. They're all honored equally as Vaishnavas. Let's say something.
Well, I actually have a question.
Yeah.
So we had with us a South Indian Brahmin boy, college student, came from a prominent family, father was a scientist, and very sattvic.
You're talking about back in the Laguna Temple.
Well, not Laguna Temple. This when we were living outside in Culver City. We befriended him, and then he came and lived with us. And so we were talking one day, and he said, actually, Varna means color.
Well, it does, yeah.
And he said, so in India is become the fashion to say what is the shade of your skin.
That's true. Yeah.
He said, but actually when you think about it, it must not apply to the body.
No.
It must be the mind. Is your mind kind of golden? Is your mind reddish? Is your mind...
No, that's just as foolish as saying by birth. But what color is your skin?
Right.
Not at all.
So do you think that's a good idea that he had, which was that it's the color of your mind that determines, like...
Well, I don't know if you can call it that, the color of your mind, but certainly because your subtle body, we've been studying that, the subtle body is carrying the samskaras from the previous lives, right? And that's determined in the modes of nature, right? So if a person, you know, his mind is colored, you could say that, because Krishna also kind of refers to that, how the living entity's subtle body is colored with certain desires and tendencies. Yeah, but I just wanted to say, I mean, South Indians, having been to South India, I've seen that they have more darker skin, you know, and in North India, especially when you get all the way up to Kashmir and so forth, they're lighter skin. But yet, many of our acharyas came from South India, you know. And even Bengalis, you can see amongst the Bengalis, so many of them quite dark-skinned, you know. So this is not at all correct to try to determine a person by the shade of his skin. But yet it's become popular. It's become popular. They want to, you know, look more light-skinned. They think that means that they become more upper class, you know.
Even in America.
Yeah, even in America, especially, you know, the Oriental race. They're very sensitive to getting even the slightest bit of coloration from the sun. You know, I've lived in Southeast Asia and gone to China and everything. They like the pale, whitish skin, you know.
But Prabhupada called that, I was in a class in LA.
Yeah, right.
And he was laughing, he looked and he goes, I see all of you as being the descendants of the people that Parashuram kicked out of India.
Yeah, many times Prabhupada has told her. It's a fact.
And then he said, actually, your skin is not white. This is what I remember. He goes, your skin we look at is reddish.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And guess what? The reddish kind of skin and like red hair, blue eyes, they're like uncivilized amongst, they're more like, you know, in the course of European development of the races and all of that, you know, they're considered to be warrior kind, who are more affected by the lower modes, you know, not like Kshatriya warriors, but like really rough people, you know, barbarians. More like, that's the right word, barbarians, you know. So, but at any rate, you know, it's true that, and Prabhupada said it many, many times, that the Western white Caucasian, they've come from, you know, the Kshatriya races that were driven out of India, because they fled out and they went in those directions, you know. And that's why we see that Western civilization of the modern day, European, American, like what has been developed in the world. There's so much managerial expertise of Western civilization in terms of the Vaishya, like developing all of those things and developing armies and military and all of that. So they had very much expertise in that. And especially, Prabhupada pointed this out, the Germans, especially. They're most intelligent, Prabhupada said. And you see their qualities. What do they produce? Everything is perfection, you know. Even when I was in Russia, devotees told me, I mean, I traveled so many years in Russia, and they told me that it was like beginning of the 1900s, some Germans came and made their own like towns, you know, in Russia, in certain area of Russia. And, but they're surrounded by the Russian people of that area. And they said their towns were so clean, properly organized, good road, everything. But the Russians were just all like backward, and the sanitation systems and this and that, you know. So the thing is that certain characteristics are there. This is what's being spoken here. But yet it's all mixed and blended together like in a big old blender, you know, all the different castes and the qualities and everything. But Prabhupada said their natures will automatically be shown according to their tendencies of work and according to their qualities, characteristics, you know. Yeah. So now Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, just this last sentence we were reading, when good fortune arises for a person belonging to the classes outside Vedic culture, he will, as a result of his previous sukriti, follow the conduct befitting the Shudra Varna, artisans and laborers, and he will develop the mode of goodness. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, everyone should associate with sadhus, and thus make bhakti the prime concern of life, transforming the mode of goodness that has been cultivated into a state of transcendence to the modes near. We've already heard him explaining this. This is the only way to gradually progress in Sanatan Dharma. Now, what is Sanatan Dharma? Do you know? What is it? What is that? Sanatan Dharma.
Eternal Jiva.
Meaning what? Yeah. Meaning what?
The eternal nature and function of the soul itself.
Yeah. Sanatan Dharma never changes, right? But Varnashram Dharma, that changes. That can be changed. But the Sanatan Dharma is pertaining to what? Our actual relationship with Krishna as eternal jivatmas. And what is our function? What are we supposed to always be doing? What is the eternal function of the jiva that will never change? It is Krishna Nityadas, the eternal servant of Krishna. So this is why Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying, he's saying that by associating with sadhus, transforming the mode of goodness that has been cultivated into a state of transcendence, nirgun, he said this is the only way to gradually progress in Sanatan Dharma, because that's what we want. We're not that concerned about the temporary dharma of the body and the subtle body, but we're concerned about the Sanatan Dharma. So he says that the presence of bhakti, it makes the people of all castes, get this one now, The presence of bhakti makes the people of all castes superior even to brahmanas. That would be a shocking thing for the, karma kandi type brahmins to hear. What? People from any caste, because they're doing bhakti, makes them superior even to brahmanas? No, it's hard for them to swallow that. But in the absence of bhakti, even a Brahman's life has no value. Because it's in the material plane. It is necessary for us to adopt the behavior of our previous Mahajans. And that's what this section is all about. We have to adopt the behavior of all the previous Mahajans. What is a Mahajan? Yeah, describe more. A Mahajan. How do you know someone is a Mahajan? The actual term, Jan, means person. And Mahajan means great personalities. What makes them great?
Great Vaishnavas. Their surrender.
What?
Their surrender to the Lord.
Yeah.
Devotion.
Yeah. Bhakti. Bhakti. They're extremely advanced in bhakti. And those who are the topmost in the universe advanced in bhakti, they're in this category of Mahajans. So he says, it is necessary for us to adopt the behavior of all of our previous Mahajans. Very necessary. They have shown by their example. But there is one matter worthy of special consideration. Now he's bringing up this point. I wonder what that will be. I haven't read this yet. There's one matter that is worthy of special consideration in this regard. Among the many past and present rishis and maharshi preceptors whose behavior should be followed. Oh, this is the question. Sorry. This is a question. Among the many past and present rishi and maharshi preceptors, because we're talking about universal time. Brahmaji, he's got the longest life. Right? He's also one of the Mahajans. Narada, Vyasadeva, Lord Shiva. Now, the question is, amongst all them, many are past acharyas, Mahajans, many are present, Maharshi preceptors, rishis, maharshis. Yeah. Whose behavior should be followed amongst them? That's the question now. This is the thing that is worthy of special consideration. Yes. One Mahatma has said that the path of the Mahajans should be traversed after examining all of its aspects, both future and past. Now here's the conclusion. The conclusion is that it is appropriate to adopt the conduct of recent Mahajans after examining the previous and other recent Mahajans. For example, before the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there were many Rishi and Maharshi Mahajans whose behavior was considered to be the behavior of the previous Mahajans. Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. Yes. So before Mahaprabhu's appearance, many Rishis and Mahajans, their behavior was considered to be the behavior of the previous Mahajans. So that was the standard. Previous Mahajans meant persons in that category. So,
I'm sorry.
well, let's finish this first because
I don't understand that sentence.
yeah, let's finish this because he's going to clarify it, and then we'll. Okay, so therefore, in light of that, therefore it is the behavior of the recent Mahajans that is superior and worthy of being followed. The conduct of Srimad Mahaprabhu and the devotees who follow him, which they practiced in order to instruct the living entities, should be thoroughly followed by all. So, any point to make on that, or any question?
I just didn't understand the
Give
statement.
that mic.
Oh, no. I didn't understand. I didn't understand the sentence.
You didn't understand the sentence?
Yeah, start with the beginning of that sentence about the previous acharyas before Mahaprabhu following
okay.
the previous acharyas.
All right.
So,
Okay, so we'll review this.
and if you could tell
So,
me the essence of
Yeah,
that
the
sentence.
conclusion, he's saying that the conclusion is that it is appropriate to adopt the conduct of recent Mahajans after examining the previous and the other recent Mahajans. So what he's doing is he's breaking this into two categories, following the Mahajans. The path that the Mahajans have followed should be traversed after examining all of its aspects, both future and past. And then the conclusion is, it's appropriate to adopt the conduct of recent Mahajans after examining the previous and other recent Mahajans, and then he now gives the example of the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very recent, only 500 years ago. So, before the appearance of Mahaprabhu, there were many rishis and Maharshi Mahajans whose behavior was considered to be the behavior of the previous Mahajans. So that's the standard that they were all adhering to. The behavior of the Mahatmas who have come since the appearance of Srimad Mahaprabhu is considered the behavior of the recent Mahajans. I remember how Gurudev clarified this by saying that, yes, Mahajano yena gata sapanta, you should always follow the path of the Mahajans. But then Gurudev said, there are no greater Mahajans, even compared to the 12 Mahajans, right? There are no greater Mahajans than Rupa Goswami and these personalities who have appeared in the line of Mahaprabhu. You see? So, therefore, it is the behavior of the recent Mahajans that is superior and worthy of being followed. The conduct of Srimad Mahaprabhu and the devotees who follow him, which they practiced in order to instruct the living entities, it should be thoroughly followed by all. So there's no question.
So that does that mean?
Mike?
So in recent times that would mean the acharya for any particular era should be followed. It's not that we're following just Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, although he's great Mahajana Acharya, but our Prabhupada and then Gurudev, because we're actually following the conduct and even the preaching style.
Well, yes, because they themselves, in our disciplic succession, are adhering to the behavior of the previous acharyas. Like, for example, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur established Daivi Varnashram Dharma after researching all these ancient texts of Ramanuja Acharya Sampradaya, you see. So, but because he's the current most qualified Mahajan, so he's determining how this should now be applied, following the previous Mahajans. And therefore, he inaugurated a new system of Varnashram Dharma, which would be applicable for following the behavior of the Mahajans in the line of Mahaprabhu. Because this is the Rupa Nuga Sampradaya. We're in that line. And the line of Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, all. So, he took what behavior and characteristics of Varnashram were there from, more than 1,000 years ago. But he applied it to the modern situation, you see. Understand? All right, so now we've completed And now comes another. Now, the behavior and conduct of grihastas. This is the section. And now in this section, there's many subsections with the letters A, B, C, etc. This will go on. This will go on. All right? So now, what is sadvritti, or proper behavior? This is the question being asked. The conduct of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his bhaktas is the ideal example by which we can properly understand this. Understand what? Proper behavior, sadvritti. For this reason, their conduct is briefly described below. Now, first comes A, category A. This is talking about the behavior and conduct of grihastas. So, first category is in relation to marriage and the maintenance of a family. Okay? So, a householder along with his wife is to practice Bhagavad Bhajan while performing whatever worldly duties are favorable for bhajan. Sons and daughters born in the course of following such worldly duties should be nourished and protected and accepted as Krishna's servants and maidservants. Because money is required for maintaining a family, it should be collected through suitable means that are lawful and in accordance with Dharma. Very important. So that's the section in relation to marriage and the maintenance of the family. Now comes B, in relation to knowledge and education. In relation to knowledge and education. It is necessary to be educated at an appropriate age. But the study of books or scriptures that are averse to Krishna should not be undertaken. The purpose of knowledge is to enter Krishna bhajan, not to acquire money or prestige. What is the purpose of knowledge? To enter Krishna bhajan. And what is not the purpose of knowledge? To acquire money or prestige. Labh, puja, pratishtadi. Okay, now the category C, grihastas, in relation to serving guests. This is a big thing in Vedic culture, is it not? In grihasta ashram, yeah. Prabhupada used to talk about his own father, Gaur Mohan Dey. He said every single day, without exception, there would be at least a few, sometimes half a dozen sadhus who would be invited by him to come to his house and to take their meals and so forth. And of course, I mean, we've heard how Srila Prabhupada, he saw all of these sadhus throughout his growing up childhood and everything. And that's why when someone asked him to come and meet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was not very interested. I've seen so many sadhus, see. But yet, this is a dharmic duty of grihastas, is to serve guests. So let's see what he says. Serving guests is the primary responsibility of householders. And they are to be honored in accordance with one's capacity and without duplicity. Simple, hard. Being fully conversant with the difference between them, one should appropriately honor ordinary guests and affectionately serve devotee guests. There's a difference. They should be conversant with the difference between the ordinary guests. They should be honored. But serving devotee guests affectionately. Okay, here's the thing. Now comes category D. Now this is in relation to virtuous qualities. householders ought to behave with everyone in a simple manner and without duplicity. In this way, they should always perform Bhagavad Bhajan. The foremost duty of householders is to serve their Guru Jan, their superiors and spiritual masters. For by doing this, Bhagavan is satisfied. They are to receive instructions on Vairagya Dharma, or the duties of a renunciant, but they must not adopt the dress of a renunciant and deceitfully act as if they are renounced. Renunciation must be genuine, not artificial. A householder is to maintain firm faith in bhakti and accept only those objects that are required to maintain his life according to his needs while remaining unattached to them. Yeah, that's a balancing act. You gotta be able to do all these things simultaneously. What are they? To maintain firm faith in bhakti and accept only those sense objects that are required to maintain his life according to his needs, while remaining unattached to them. Yeah.
Triple whammy.
Yeah. Now, internally, it is necessary to endeavor to allow the immaculate current of bhakti to flow, while externally continuing to behave according to social customs. By doing so, one can attain the mercy of Bhagavan within a short time. It is necessary for all householders to possess the quality of being compassionate to others. It's a very important quality for householders. That's why we have Dharma Dog and we're maintaining them. Yes, so it is necessary for all householders to possess the quality of being compassionate to others. And among all the types of compassion in this world, engaging the living entities in Krishna Bhakti is topmost. What's topmost? Among all the types of compassion in this world? In Krishna Bhakti. Topmost. Topmost compassionate activity. Householders will themselves engage in Krishna Bhakti and also endeavor to bring others to this path. The foremost way to bring others to this path is to instruct them to constantly chant Krishna Nam. Detrimental association, kusanga, it should always be avoided. And in the association of pure devotees, one is to hear and chant Bhagavan's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes. But bhakti is spoiled by participating in the kirtan of non-devotees. Again, bhakti is spoiled by participating in the kirtan of non-devotees. By doing so, the bondage of material existence tightens even more. By doing what? What makes it tighten even more? Yes. Yes. So, in this way, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is enlightening us as to sadvriti of householders. We'll continue tomorrow, and there are more E, F, G, H, and all these other letters. We'll see how far he goes in this regard. Jai Jai Shri Shri Upadeshamritam Ki Jai, Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai, Srila Rupa Goswami Pada Ki Jai.